Sweet friends, how do you do today? And how do you woo today? And how do you woo you today? Welcome to How to Woo, a podcast on love and making love so we can make sure we're making lives we love. I am your host, Luna Robbie. I am a multi-artist and creative guide obsessed with learning about life, especially from other humans direct, because we all have our own unique perspective and wisdom. So here we are again for some deep listening and a little vicrophilia so we can stay excited about life and co-create a world where taking care of each other is the norm. Let's dive in. Our guest today is a former guest, a self-styled sexy sexagenarian cis male who is a one-and-done divorcé of more than 2 decades. A retired Protestant pastor from the American Midwest, he is returning to give us some updates today that include his experience enjoying a nude car show, his continuing sex toy explorations, his recent exploration with a newly discovered clothing compersion kink, and his initial foray back into the swinging lifestyle. You can go listen to his original episode, number 281, Sexagenarian Sexologist. Welcome back, BJ. So before we get into your details, if today you could rate yourself on a sexual shame-o-meter with 10 being the most full of shame and 0 being like, I don't have any at all. Like, have you fluctuated at all since we talked last? Where are you falling right now?
Oh, I think I'm definitely below 1. There's always that shame that's sort of lurking in the background of myself that wants to poke out and shame me again. But I think when it tries to rear its ugly head, like metaphorically wave my finger and I said, no, no, no. And so that's how it is.
I love that. Okay, so as we are recording this, it has been about 9 months since our original on-pod conversation, and you have a little bit of updates for us, a little bit of exploration, but I thought we might start with hearing about your experience at this nude car show. So I would love to hear, what is this event? Is it sexual? I know some nudist people are very like anti-sexual, and I know from some of the messages that I have received from our dear listeners that some people don't know the difference between something being naked and sexual. So is it like, do you get to go nakedly sit on cars? Like, what is it? What's your experience like? Tell us a little bit about it and what you loved about it.
Well, it's basically like any other car enthusiast car show, except the expectation is that we're all nudists. It's a fun thing because they got activities, they have a dance, it's a weekend, and they sell food. Like it's just all people socializing, and it's basically a campground where everyone is supposed to be nude, where you can pitch your tent or bring your fifth wheel, or I think there is a sexual undertow. And I remember one time I was sort of hanging out at the pool, and one of the buddies I know there, he was sitting there with his date, and he made a comment that, well, I did bring plenty of lube. But the implication was when they were going to get off to a private place, they were going to use their lube. And I'm talking lube that does not go into automobiles, but how you say lube that us humans in intimate activity like to utilize.
Got it. Okay, so literal tent pitching because there's no clothes to pitch metaphorical tents in. And this lube was not for the pool, but was for a private zone. Do they set any explicit tones when for the attendees? Like, are there rules or like, what are the guidelines? What are the invitations? And do you get to hang out on or in any cars naked? Because that's where my head goes. I'm like, I would like to lay on people's cars naked.
Well, the idea is in the nudist scene, you always have a towel with you so that if you want to sit down on a given surface or something, you put that there as a buffer zone between your, how you say, your bum and wherever, for hygienic purposes that
Sure.
you always sit on your towel.
But do you get to sit in the cars or are the cars just to look at? Like, I am like, why? I think everything should be naked personally, but like, I'm so curious about nudity with cars in particular and if there's any specific interaction there.
You know, I've talked and chatted with the different owners, and
Mhm.
we're all in the buff. and their cars are nicely buffed up, for the car show. Haha. But, I'm trying to think is I don't know if anyone's actually sat in the car. I think it's that consent thing that, if you say, "Oh, I haven't seen a such and such in the longest time. Can I sit in it?" And well, I'm sure, you ask the owner nicely and they would. And what the idea is that you place the towel on the seat before you put your bare bottom on the seat.
Okay, but it's, like, more to show off cars because I've never been to a proper car show. I've only been to kind of an informal weekend event with my brother and my little nephew,
Yeah.
which is called Coffee and Cars, and that's just, like, in a parking lot, and people just walk around and look at stuff, but they don't really, like, sit in each other's cars or drive the cars or anything like that, and so
Yeah, and, actually, the car shows I've gone to, like at the local mall, a lot of people put a lot of attention and work into their automobiles, so, the idea is probably look and look only and hold off on the touching.
do you feel turn on there, or is it, like, more like general life turn on and not necessarily sexual for you?
Well, okay, I think it all goes back to sex sooner or later, but the thing is, when I throw off my clothes, it's like I'm literally and figure I'm throwing off all my worries, and I just feel totally relaxed at a level that it's hard to duplicate otherwise. Generally, everyone's very friendly, we're all in the nude, and I think it's like we, in a sense, are experiencing our authentic, genuine selves amongst us, if you can understand that.
Totally.
Because we have I think literally and metaphorically, we're stripped bare.
Yeah.
We're bearing ourselves to others.
I love that.
But there's all sorts of activities around the car show, like they bring in a band and there's like a dance, and I think there's, like, somebody who's, like, done an Elvis tribute kinda thing.
Is the band also naked, or, like, is it a naked Elvis, or do those ones wear clothes?
Well, it depends.
Okay.
I guess my experience is mostly they have been, clothed. But now, the interesting twist, though, is naked karaoke, if you can imagine
Mm.
that.
Oh, I can.
There's a little bit of flexibility there, on having to be in the buff, when you're bringing in, I say, outside vendors or people who are rendering these different things, like either the band or the DJ for karaoke. And actually, though, let's say if it gets a little nippy, people are allowed to maybe, like, throw on a bathrobe to stay warm,
Mm.
or see, the funny thing is actually some lady came up to me, sorta half sternly and half jokingly said, "No, you better not be wearing any underwear under those sweats."
I love
So
that.
so the idea is that you wanna be clothed as little as possible, practical, but sometimes, if a cold front comes in, you may have to put on a layer of something or other unless you wanna turn it shiver yourself,
Yeah.
but
Well, I was gonna say, it sounds like you mentioned the kind of mental and or emotional aspect of being bare, but it sounds like there is also quite a sensorial experience for you.
oh, yes, because it's amongst the trees that, the aroma, it's almost like my sense of smell is heightened when
Mm.
I'm there without my clothes on.
For better or worse. I don't have a great sense of smell, and it seems to work in my favor oftentimes, but I love being naked in the sunlight, naked out in nature. Of course, I imagine, like, are there mosquitoes there? It sounds like maybe it's too cold for mosquitoes, but it's like you gotta watch out for mosquito bites and sunburns, right?
My experience there, I've never had many problems with mosquitoes, but of course, yes, you gotta be wise with your sunscreen, and particularly if, a person who is accustomed to, how you say, sunbathing in a bathing suit, certain areas may be exposed that otherwise not.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's ample opportunity for connection. Does it ever lead to sexual things, or is the vibe pretty like, no, it's not sexual, and or people are always asking me about nudist things whenever I have them on pod or when they come up in conversation. Do people get erections? Like, are you worried about anything like that? Like, how does the sexual element tie into the nudity, if at all? Tell us.
Well, the idea is if it happens, you have your towel handy, but there's 2 categories, broad categories of nudist resorts or clubs out there. One is more the explicit sort of swinger thing. It's sort of like nudist swinger club where sexual activity can happen out in the open, but, as long as you're in your tent or your camper or whatever for sexual activity, that's endorsed. Yet, looking back, I think I've had some women sort of flirt with me or, chat me up like as a prospect, but at least to date, I've not, how you say, quote, I say retreated to a tent or a camper or whatever, but, I'm open to that, but
Okay.
well, okay. Would we all be sitting here unless other people had all gone off and engaged in sexual activity and engaged in what you call that original form of creation?
That is what I say. That's why I think it's funny when people are like, "They must be separate," and I totally also wanna honor that there are different spaces designed for different things, so I think it's cool to sort of just, mention the layers of the sensuality, the turn on, and keeping it appropriate for the venue.
Well, yeah. Well, let me say is that, see, there's what's it, American Association of Nude Recreationists, AANR, and if you go to, like, their website, the idea is that's supposed to be the family-friendly version of nudism, where, sure, you know, eh, sexual activity, of course, is permitted, but, you say behind closed doors, so to speak.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, yeah, when you say family, I mean, people can bring their children who are still minors. And so, see, that's the reason that they have those guidelines.
Yeah, totally. I just love making the distinction because I know from talking to so many people that not everybody knows that there are different spaces with different kind of norms, shall we say. And I love that it sounds like you were able to just explore this cool experience. And it sounds like you took a break and came back to it. And so that's a little piece of self-love. I think that might be a great time for you to talk a little bit more of the other types of self-love that you have been exploring. So you mentioned continuing your sex toy explorations with yourself. What have you been learning about yourself as you love yourself in a perhaps more explicitly sexual way? Or is it sexual? I imagine that sex toys are sexual, but tell us your experience.
Yes. Or, we call them sex toys, I guess,
Pleasure implements,
or accessories.
some people say tools. They hate that they're called toys. I don't know why. I think toys, I'm like, it's play. I don't know, so it's whatever word makes you happy.
Yeah, and, maybe we're getting lost in it, but I think toys is sort of what everyone knows. But I think I heard of a toy store somewhere where they call it the tool shed
Hmm.
or something like that. But, actually, it's some of your sponsors and guests that have inspired me because I went and ordered the FirmTech rings.
Okay, and I just want to say right here that BJ has not been planted by any of these companies to shout them out. He is just supporting the podcast in the deepest way, which I super appreciate. I just want to say that for everyone's clarity.
This is a non-paid endorsement.
Okay, so it's an endorsement.
Well, it's an endorsement and a grateful endorsement because, you're out here spreading ripples of love and of course, you take on sponsors that you have a rapport and that you believe in and that you think are good.
Okay, well, I just want to be clear. FirmTech was not a sponsor. Butter Wellness is not a sponsor. They are affiliate links. So I got no money for those for FirmTech's interview. I just thought it was very interesting. And I had a friend who was like, this is cool. Check it out. And so you are the first person who has contacted me that says, "I bought one." So tell us, what is it like? Are you using it? Like, does it make your erection? Like, tell us the details of what it's actually like.
It's been a bit of a journey. Well, I was trying out the performance ring. I'm somebody who has tried different, what you call cock rings or penis rings,
Okay.
but I say the performance ring, well, that's the best cock ring that I've ever, found.
Why? What makes it so good? What do you think about the clasp? I feel like that seems so cool.
Other cock rings have a way of, like, they're really constricting, and, this is just, I say it's the Goldilocks of cock rings, you could say. It's just right because it seems to grip in the correct regions because, here's somebody who's really said, "How can I, reinvent or refine cock rings?" And so, that's the performance ring, and, there is also the tech ring, which actually has some electronics, and that the idea is that a person can wear it, uh, during the night because, folks who have penis plumbing, as I say,
Mhm. Mm.
a healthy penis has nocturnal erections. This cock ring's designed that you can wear it basically while you're sleeping
Yeah.
and attracts your nocturnal erections and gives you a score. And then also you can wear it during sexual activity, either solo or partnered, and it'll record, the quality of your erection, I think is what, well, you get a score of how firm your erection is.
Okay.
So it's basically gathering data. Once you have enough recordings, the neat thing about this is that I understand that I can schedule a complimentary 15-minute consult with Dr. Elliot Justin based
Cool.
on the data that's been gathered through this tech ring.
I want to hone in on your details though. So it sounds like you have no emotional reaction to getting a score related to your erection, because I can imagine if someone was like rating my orgasms or rating my blood flow, I can imagine I might have some sort of like judgment feeling about that, right? But it sounds like that's not it for you. You're interested in the data. Did I get that right?
Right. Actually, it's more positive
Okay.
because a healthy penis should have, like, I think, 3 to 4 nocturnal erections. And so far, the initial data, it looks like good because, okay, when I'm sleeping, I'm not, if I may incidentally wake up in the middle of the night and maybe I notice an erection, but when you're asleep, you don't know. But this is a sense knowledge is power or reassurance, I should say, in this sense. So it's all positive because it sounds like so far it appears like I'm reasonably healthy.
I would like to circle back to the performance ring and get some details because you said it was the best cock ring that you have experienced. So what makes it that way? Like, I would like some specific experiential details, whether that is a sensation, whether it's like something you learned about yourself, like what makes it good for you?
It's during solo play. I have yet to, I say, do partner play, which actually I'm anticipating, as you say, in divine timing
Okay.
or when the time's right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but I'm impressed though that this particular cock ring, I think that's like one of the firmest erections that I've experienced.
Have you come while wearing it, and did you get sensitive, and how was it to take off? Because I've only used a cock ring a couple times with a partner, and I know that the tricky bit was like after the orgasm, there was a lot of sensitivity with this penis haver, this person with penis plumbing. So what was that? Have you experienced that yet? And what's that feel like for you? If so.
Oh, I don't think I had any adverse sensitivity or anything. I think the thing that stands out in my mind was the rock hardness that I was experiencing.
Cool.
So, and it enhanced the experience for me, at least, so far. And so I think, the FirmTech folks, Dr. Elliot Justin, he's doing a service to humanity in some great ways.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay. You also mentioned that you were experimenting with other types of toys. Is there anything else in your pleasure palette as of late that is worth noting?
Well, you put the affiliate links, like in the description of your episodes, and Butter Wellness, I believe is what it is.
Yeah.
I was curious, so I went and ordered their perineum vibrator and their lube, and so I've, just started, trying them out. It's sort of a teardrop-shaped vibrator.
Mhm.
I'm a newbie with, prostate perineal vibrators, so it was more like, "Hmm," and so it's like I'm on the edge of some exploration here, and I feel curious, like, I wanna try this some more because that's where it is. I'm just in a sense, I think I'm sort of reclaiming my sexuality because, I think in the last few years, I had a hernia repair.
Mm.
The last thing I had, I went and basically fell down at work, fractured my hip, and I ended up with a full hip replacement.
Oh, wow.
So, bouncing back from that, and so I think my nerves are still working and everything. It's just like I'm just rediscovering things.
Okay.
And so I'm, looking forward to this vibrator because of I like the feel of the actual vibrator, and it looks like a fun vibrator that I wanna find a willing partner someday in the future that we could use it on each other and make it part of our mutual play.
Totally. Well, I'm curious to hear the specifics of you receiving vibration on your perineum area because is that your first time? Because I have one, but I don't have a prostate. I have pussy parts, but I used it and I liked it. I mean, it's great for hitting everything. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that our entire pelvic region is just rich with blood vessels and nerve endings. So blood flow all around is good, but how was that vibration for you? Because I found it quite buzzy, which is good for me. There's more rumbly types of vibrators, there's buzzy types. And so I'm curious if you A, have experienced vibration in that area before at all, and B, what did you think of the actual sensation beyond, huh?
Yeah, they have, like, I think a half a dozen different patterns, like, there's this button that you hit and it sort of cycles through the different things, and but they have one which is sort of like a build-up undulation, you could say, which that seems to be the one that is my favorite
Mm.
so far, and then I wanna explore that some more. To me, though, I like it when it sort of mixes up or escalates or pulses a vibration. It almost seems to mimic, like, let's say someone else is caressing me
Yeah.
because I don't think another human. So, if they touch me with their hand, does it go, but constant vibration? I guess you could if you're really talented, but
Well, I like to mix constant vibration with movement of hand. So if I'm gonna masturbate with a constant vibration toy, or I have this little travel toy from Iroha that I love to wrap around my fingers, or the Vesper necklace. Again, I wish these people were sponsors. They're not. If you know them, please write to them. But I will use the constant setting, and then my hand will be in charge of the motion. And like you said, it's like the experience of having a toy or whatever tool, a pleasure tool, an implement. I do like being a little bit outside of the control of my masturbation while also, being in charge of the things. So,
it's like I liken it to like a new musical instrument that I've acquired and where I'm just starting to learn my first few notes. Yet, with practice and study, the potential of the instrument unfolds. And so that's where it is. But as they say, practice makes better. Is that the saying?
my mom always says practice makes better and perfect practice makes perfect. And there was also a lesson in there about there is no such thing as perfect. I don't know.
Yeah, perfection of a compass heading, like we're pointing towards perfection. yet are we actually ever gonna really get to there, you know?
I mean, I think this gets into a deeper conversation, which I do think is related to sex lives because I think perfectionism, like the idea of perfect, is an elusive, sexually corrosive concept that I think destroys pleasure and inspires, in my personal witnessing, a lot of personal pain. Like, there's this idea that there is a perfect and it's a moving target, and I think most people who I know who strive to reach it are fed a lot of lies, and it's oftentimes, like, ideas that are kind of, like, ephemeral
Yeah.
and social norms and judgments, and I know a lot of people who have really struggled with that, and so I've never been a perfectionist because no matter how hard I try, one of my blessings and curses is that my unique little brain, even if she's trying to people please really hard, sooner or later, my brain will reach a different conclusion from someone else's inference or whatever, and I explode people. So I grew up learning that I could never be perfect no matter how hard I try, and I think that is one of the reasons that for better or worse, I am marching to the beat of my own little drum. I think it sounds like you're on your way to, dare I say, being part of a symphony of pleasure in this instance, if you're learning to play this instrument.
Yes, and actually, let's just lay aside that whole idea of perfection or perfectionism, because really it has a lot what's the end result? But let's pursuit of excellence, or how can we do a little bit better this day in the journey?
Yeah, I think, and it's again, I think it comes back to definitions, right? Like for me, the idea of perfect is being present in this moment with where we are as we are now. What is excellent, what is better, for me, that's defined with connection and who's around me and am I really connected to them. I think the idea about like this concept of perfect that I don't like is I've noticed that it causes a lot of people to lie to themselves and each other, and in my observation, that is a destroyer of connection. And so for me, everything comes back to, but are we connected? But are we experiencing, the beauty of your personhood? I want to know it. And if you're too busy judging yourself for being imperfect, then you hide from me. And then I can't find you. And then I'm like, hello, where are you? And then I become a woodpecker and then I explode the person instead of letting them come to me.
Here's maybe an analogy or something. Have you ever been on that road trip where you wanna get to the destination?
No. My mom, we literally had a car when I was a child named Journey because my mom said life
Oh,
is a journey, not a destination. Like, because otherwise the destination is death. And so I have I have that in my brain very strongly. She also said, make your work your play and you'll never have to work a day in your life. And I think I took her very literally.
well, I'm so glad that you have had that healthy nurturing and outlook, because I think I have observed this sometimes in myself, and perhaps others have done this too, but it's like I'm thinking, "Oh, I wanna get to such and such destination," and I'm grumbling on my way because I'm not to the destination yet, and I'm feeling unhappy during the journey to that destination. So that's a really unhealthy attitude. So, as you say, life is a journey, and smell some of the roses, if you will, or take in the scenery, or what's, your present point in the journey, and take that in and enjoy it. And, have a little bit of openness about it. And I think we'll all find more happiness.
Yeah, and happiness is an evolution, right? And the way that our actual brains are structured, we're highly 90%, I don't know, I can't remember. In the nucleus accumbens, only like 10% of it is set aside for the liking once we receive a thing. Most of it is set aside for seeking the dopamine, sort of the motivation to go to the next thing, go to the next thing. And we live in a time of productivity and did I do good enough? Do I deserve gold stars? And it's like, yes, you all deserve gold stars, but like, are you enjoying the experience? So that's how I kind of measure it. Speaking of enjoying things, like on behalf of other people, I want to hear about this clothing compersion kink. I have never heard this phrase before. I'm aware of compersion, which for anyone listening who isn't, it's where, oftentimes I hear it in a kind of a polyamorous setting of like, I love that my partner is receiving pleasure even if it's with another partner, or maybe it's especially at the hands of another partner. So I feel a lot of compersion for people. It's kind of, I think that sometimes it's the opposite of envy. It is oftentimes put at the opposite end of the scale of jealousy. So tell me about your explorations with clothing compersion.